آياتها قرآنك أو أينو أخري دونتو مريم إسماعيل.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. تبارك الذي بيده الملك وهو على كل شيء قدير. الذي خلق الموت والحياة ليبلوكم أيكم أحسن عملا وهو العزيز الغفور. الذي خلق 7 سماوات طباق ما ترى في خلق الرحمن من تفاوت فارجع البصر هل ترى من فطور ثم ارجع البصر كرتين ينقلب إليك البصر خاسئا وهو حسير. ولقد زينا السماء الدنيا بمصابيح وجعلناها رجوما للشياطين وأعتدنا لهم عذاب السعير. وللذين كفروا بربهم عذاب جهنم وبئس المصير. إذا ألقوا فيها سمعوا لها شهيقا وهو تفور تكاد تميز من الغيظ كلما ألقي فيها فوج سألهم خزنتها ألم يأتكم نذير قالوا بلى قد جاءنا نذير فكذبنا وقلنا ما نزل الله من شيء إن أنتم إلا في ضلال كبير. وقالوا لو كنا نسمع أو نعقل ما كنا في أصحاب السعير فاعترفوا بذنبهم فسحقا لأصحاب السعير. إن الذين يخشون ربهم بالغيب لهم مغفرة وأجر كبير.
ما هالعاون نجلس قريب كشان بيش مارس 8 وأهمالنتي حسكا دمرك دونك لكن يعني نبغى أن نسوي من وجدوين فربلن خاصة دمرك الصوماليات أو برنامجكو وهنتي برنامج أدو قيمة بدن وحاسود دياري حرفضود وحبرشدود يدأدود بيادو كل دوان تهاي وحنقف رحسنا هاي وشرف ويني إن برنامج كيدين داد هي عاوة أنا هو مقعي اللي هذا نمع محمد على بفر أنت بدن واحد مودا ضدك مركي ميل سوي مادان أما جروب اسكو مدا أما كوكل دوان حد بقفك ضدك أنتي اسكو جروبا أما أنتي اسكو وحبرشة أما اسكو دبعة أيا أنت بدن اسكو مادا لكن وحن قاعد وقف رحسن هاي عاوة برنامج كان إني يسوي مادان رجعني صوماليات دمر كيني رقم كبلاوي هبلهني dhalinyaro iyo maxay ahayd toole nooc walba iyo hooyooyin habaryare intaba marka caawa in badan ayaan waxaan ka qayb galay barnaamijyo ama gabdhaha kulay magaalada hawlaha ka qabta iyagu ka qayb galeen aad miis la fariisanayso 10 rag iyo hal gabar marka caawa waxa laga yaabaa inaad aragtaan 10 gabdhood iyo hal wiil ama 10 gabdhood iyo 2 wiil marka kulay waasiyaabaha ka badan kala duwan oo wax wada qabsan doono برنامجنا عاوي اسكو دبردي قالها اسوتاga haweenka Soomaaliyeed Somali Circles Somali Women Circle Network waa gole rag iyo dumar buu u furan yahay iyo arday iyo maxay caruur iyo ciroole intaba muhiimaddeeduna waxay tahay dumarka Soomaaliyeed sidee baanu isugu keenaa kuwa wax loo qabto u baahan sidee baanu wax ugu qabanaa barnaamijka caawa wuxuu koobayaa qaarada aad u kala duwan ama Afrika ha ahaato ama Yurub ha ahaato iyo meelo ka sii fogfogba marka kulley anagu ma nihin organization magaalada ka furan oo isagu service bixiya ama magaalada uu joogo kaliya ka shaqeeya organizationkani waa mid international ah hawlaha iyo reportka aad caawa arki doontaan ayaanad ka garan doontaan anoo mar labaad ku hadlaya magaca guddiga soo qaban qaabiyey oo runtii hawl badan geliyey hawshan idinkuna aadna soo sharafteen inaad timaadaan cashadani caawa waa casho dad isu yimid ehela walaalo ah saaxiibo ah oo ra'yi wada wadaagaya waxaan ugu talagalnay programku laba inuu hadalladu runtii aada u gaagaabtaan entertainment badana la dhex geliyo dadkiinan maaragtay na soo sharfay caawa cashada nagala soo qayb galayna la siiyo chance ay iyaguna kaga qayb qaataan marka welcome soo dhawaada anigoon maaragtay ku dheeraaneyn waxaan u gudbayaa speakerkeena ugu horeeya فوزية عبد القادر كل وما باهنا شيء دي introduction.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليكم. Thank you very much, Nimra, and the group that has really been working so hard. We've been given the option to do this either in Somali or in English, so since I'm the first, I'm going to go with English, and then I will leave Somali for the rest of the speakers. It's an honor to be here, to be part of this event. March 8th is an international day. And as a woman and a Canadian Somali woman, I think it's important to celebrate, but it's also critical that we are here at a forum that the Somali Circle Network has organized, an organization that is really active and would be continuing to be active in everything Somali, and particularly everything Somali women. My topic that Nimra has assigned me is to say a few words, and I know that she just said we don't want long speeches, so it's not going to be long. But to say a few words about the social achievements. There'll be a lot of speakers that will talk about Somali women and their various achievements. So my domain is going to be the social. So I'm going to take you back just to reflect a few minutes growing up in Mogadishu. Everybody can hear me, right? Growing up in Mogadishu in should I say the 70s or the 60s, or you know, whichever era you want to pick. I grew up really looking at and interacting with very strong Somali women. In my mind, as a youngster growing up, Somali women were the strongest women I knew. And in their social status and social achievement, one could have seen that as much as the public domain was limited, and the public domain was for, and the political domain was for the men, when it came to the household and when it came to your homes, the mothers were in charge. You could really tell. I had a young cousin who said, "Why is it that daddy is afraid of mommy?" When we were growing up. So a Somali mother in her house was really strong and in charge and powerful. So that's the backdrop I kind of grew up with. And I even remember having a conversation with, later on when I left the country, with some sort of European expats who lived in Kismayo around the sugar factory, Marere factory, talking about how they would see country women, Somali country women coming when there's droughts and whatnot. They'll come for a few months to the city and work as housemaids. But that money was theirs. It wasn't the family money. It wasn't, they will come. And this woman was admiring how independent that illiterate Somali woman who came from the countryside was really independent. And she knew what she was going to do with her money, what kind of business she was going to go into once she makes money for 4 months or 6 months. And she was really, when she was talking about it, she was talking and admiring how independent in spirit that woman was. So that is the kind of memory for me of Somali women. Even though there was a lot of inequalities and a lot of segregation, and certain domains were not accommodating. So when you think about the social fabric of the society, Somali women were at the center of that. Whether it's the household, whether it's even working And when we were in Mogadishu, you would see women going to universities, women even teaching at the universities, but also raising families. It was not either or. You didn't have to choose to either go for a career or this. It was combined. Mind you, there were other women supporting that process, right? When a working mother is having babies, there were other women taking care of that and supporting at home. But socially, they were able to navigate and balance a career and a family. During the heydays of the military regime and when we had the orientation centers, I remember there was a sheikh in Toronto once who was asked about Somali women and the role they had in during the military, and he said, "Ka'anki iyo dumarku way isku ogeyn, way isla wada socdeen markii suuqa ay dambeysay." Like the women were really in good terms with the military regime, and the centers and the orientation centers, they were really active when Somalia was experimenting with scientific socialism. The forefront of that process were women carrying the banners. So women were really, they were not shying away from public life in that sense. But that is, the heydays of when Somalia had a proper functioning state. So fast forward to 1991, 92, and the absolute and total collapse of every institution. Somali women across borders, in refugee camps, still having babies in the middle of nowhere. My sister Zahra talked about how, the border, no man's land between Kenya and Somalia, delivering babies because they were all in their, a voyage of cars, and women were pregnant, and and only Somalis would have the audacity to name the babies that were born under those trees after the trees that they were born on, right? Talk about nicknames. We have now cousins who are named Garas, and all the different trees that were simply because it doesn't matter how hard life was, there was always a humor in it and a memory, and they will name the babies, give them nicknames, just to mark that post, that story, that line of crossing that border. So Somali women have, we all know, been subjected and borne the brunt of the civil war. But that didn't make them agency-less or kind of like, giving up on things. They were still managing, whether they were in refugee camps or whether in between countries or whether in diaspora. They were still carrying on and have become, over the time since 1991, the backbone. I think, in my research and my analysis, when I look at the phenomena of Somalia not having a state, yet surviving, and not kind of disappearing from the face of the earth, I think a huge part of that credit goes to Somali women. They became the backbone, and they started linking, whether they were in diaspora and taking care of those in refugee camps, whether they were in the refugee camps and trying to get into businesses, whether they were in Dubai or India or what have you, making business and traveling, they have stepped up. They have stepped up to become the breadwinners. They have stepped up to become those who are nurturing the families. So they really, when you reflect on it, they started accomplishing and handling a lot of things. So that is when total collapse came across the world. I want to take 2 minutes and talk about what has happened socially and social life in the diaspora in places like Canada. You come to a place like Canada where there is nuclear family, right? Houses are built for 2, 3, no more than 3 children, and here you have a Somali mother with 6, 8 children surviving in these apartments and houses and social housing, and not becoming victims themselves to capitalist society, putting them at the margins of society. Because they are at the margins. We all know that, when they came as refugees, sometimes with no language, with no education, and no partner. As you know, there will be a whole lot of statistics backing this up. Large number of Somali mothers were single mothers. Yet they didn't despair and they didn't give up and they didn't become the victims. They have what the feminist literature and researchers call, have made the margins of society livable. People like Bell Hooks write about this. When you have strong women, whether they're African Americans or Africans, colored women, Asians, everybody who is at the margins of society, women have proven themselves to make those margins livable, to raise kids who are winning scholarships at the margins of society. So in the diaspora, they have faced a lot of challenges, but they have shone through that and have achieved, and socially. And one of the things that we brought over in terms of a Somali culture, Somali social culture, is what we know as Hagbet. And it's really interesting how when you have limited resources, there's no way you can save money in the proper sense. But if you pool your resources together, then it amounts to something that is tangible. The Somali women have done that. They have institutions at the social level, at the communal level, where they come together and share their meager resources. So Hagbet is one of them in terms of social achievements, and it's a cultural thing that we brought over. So whether they are in housing, social housing, or houses they bought, or wherever they might be, whether they are in refugee camps, what have you, Somali women have proven to rise to the challenge and have stood up and raised wonderful, high-achieving children, some of whom are sitting in the audience tonight. So what I would like to conclude with that is, as much as we might be still disenfranchised and might still be marginalized, there is a whole lot of agency and strength as far as Somali women are concerned. And there is a whole lot of achievement in the social domain when it comes to Somali women. And all I'm looking forward to is, the generation that is growing up in the diaspora, achieving even further than their mothers have achieved. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. So for International Women's Day, we decided to explore inspiring women around the world, Somali women around the world. Thanks to Sagal Adam, who couldn't be here tonight. She found an inspirational story from Kenya. Fatima Noor is a 27-year-old Somali Kenyan journalist and the 2011 CNN African Journalist of the Year. Noor won the award for an investigative 3-part series on Al-Shabaab. It was chosen from 1,400 entries from 42 nations around Africa. The series tells the story of young men who gave up their freedom abroad to return and fight for Al-Shabaab. She also won the CNN African Forum for Investigative Journalism for an undercover story she did on sexual workers in Isli, Kenya. Fatima Noor is also the recipient of David Astor Journalism Award, a UK-registered charity working on promoting independent journalism in Africa. As winner of the award, Noor served as an David Astor Journalism Fellow in England and had the opportunity to hone her journalistic skills at both the renowned Independent and Guardian newspaper. Now I'm going to introduce to you Fatima Noor's work by playing the following clips about her accomplishments and her undercover journalism in Isli. Fatima is one of the young and up-and-coming journalists and trailblazer of her generation, and I hope that it inspires young Somalis like ourselves and whomever would like to become a journalist. So, you'll understand what I mean when you play the clip. Thank you.
I'm going to do my poems in English because I only write in English. Inshallah, I will learn how to write in Somali. Inshallah. There will be days where sleep is but a fear of sinking into these despairing daydreams of mine, and I look to the sky for guidance. Child, be hasty no more. Everything is right in front of you. Your aspirations waiting to take flight. What you knew will become distant. Lessons become reoccurring themes. You are scared, but some journeys have smooth landings, and on that day, rivers will flow from your eyes. I look at the 13-year-old girl who was a melting glacier with a pot full of anger in her belly. I say, dear, Your sorrow is enough to make a criminal wallow, enough to make me feel shame for failing you, enough to make the entire nation weep 1,000 songs. But every teardrop that slides down your cheeks are enough to make me repent, and on that day, rivers will flow from my eyes. You remind me of those days when I spoke in monologues to the pressing silence that kept me companion, and I cradled the emptiness with an unforsaken passion. The longing and frustration I felt drove me to a halt. My love was but an absolute lie, choosing the adornments of the worldly and wrapping it like a pashmina scarf. My silence is familiar with the feeling of compulsive worrying, but I choose to drown it all out in my madness, to tango dance with whispers of disobedience as if my life had no lifetime span. Had I been wise, I would have understood that everything but one has an end. Be worried no more. You believe in a God with 99 glorious attributes, one of which is peace, so remember that tranquility will be bestowed upon that fragile and turmoil-filled heart of yours once you remember that every trial, every burden will never go unnoticed and unrewarded. They say that patience is a virtue, but you seem to exercise it with a despairing and draining attitude. But oh, how far you've come from your weary and nostalgic-filled days, those days you used to carry anger and helplessness the way widows do sorrow. And when I look in your eyes, I see the hope of a million sun-filled days. I know you hear it a lot, but one day the raging monsoon in you will gently end. But until then, allow yourself to indulge in the ray of emotions that you've been fighting. It's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to weep a river. It's okay to love so much that your heart can't take. But this too shall pass. Thank you. One last poem. So a lot of my poetry is kind of dealing with uplifting myself and other people, and I hope that you can take away something from it, inshallah. Teach them. Teach them of how they cannot break you so easily. How you are a nutshell, the strongest that can only be cracked by special hands, ones that speak the language of patience and admiration. Endurance is like soil. Situations may wear you down like erosion, but you were kindled by the best of hands. You were cut from the finest of cloths, linen sheets draping over your figure, golden earrings to make centerpieces. Teach them that you do not believe in the coy attitude of men who think they can click their teeth at you with knowing smiles, who think they're entitled to you. How you refuse to look into shallow eyes that reflect the corruption of society. Tell them you come from a long line of warriors, with shields on their heads and daggers by their hearts. The only ones who will be granted permission to enter are the ones who carry books of oaths, the ones who follow the word of God like meditation. Speak to me of hope, how its endless hues are covering the sky during sunrise and sunset. You, my dear, have made a pilgrimage within your own self to seek the love you have made forbidden. Teach them that the only way to love you is with ambition, to cease being the person they've buried and to become the person they fought their demons to be. The only way they will be courageous enough to love and appreciate you is when they can love God and when life with so much conviction. Teach them to love themselves. Teach them that they are worthy. Teach them of how happy you are. Shoot them smiles that capsulize your radiance. Speak of the truth. Teach them that you don't need hype to believe in something and that your opinions may be stronger than most, but that's the point. You wear a shield around your head and you have a brain worth gold. To have chosen the life of devotion, they will identify you of your dress, your actions, and the way you talk, but that's all the more reason to become a better person and to teach them to be good. Happy International Women's Day.
Assalamu alaikum. I'd like to say Happy International Women's Day, and I'd like to thank the Somali Women's Circle Network for inviting me. My first poem is called A Poem for My Sisters. So, I will not bargain away the love that I have for myself to receive it from others conditionally. I will not sacrifice my dreams to escape your resentment. I will not chase the illusion of perfection just to measure my worth against men's perceptions. Those perspectives have always been a little bit more than skewed. Haven't you been paying attention? Yes, ignorance is bliss, but sister, bliss never did come cheap. Who dared lie to you? Who told you that you were any less than beautiful? How did they teach you to give your love so openly, so wholeheartedly, to the extent that you had none left for yourself? When did you start to believe that you were the least worthy of your own energy until you spent it all on your community? And when you found that you had spent it in its entirety, how did they convince you to put your happiness up as collateral? You see, in their arrogance, they wrote the story of mankind and they forgot to even remember your chapter. And chapters speak of you, dear sister. How can they not see? Your every crease and wrinkle speaks volumes. When you finally find a moment's rest, there are epic narratives in your sighs, poetry etched in the arch of your spine, and fables reflected in your eyes. They see the smallness of your shoulders, never noticing how they're squared and strange. Your arms may be slender, but your palms are rough and your fingers calloused. If you reach out, you're clingy. If you speak up, you're combative. If you stand your ground, you are the aggressor. When they won't surrender an inch of freedom, Lord. So you suffocate in their unreasonable expectations, weighed down by the reality of generations of women who've lived lives similar to yours. You've become an echo of a dream they once had, or a shadow of your former self. Don't stretch yourself so thin that you slip through those cracks. Yes, you'll have finally filled those gaps, but only to be tread upon. This one's I call this one a love letter to my broken Somali. So, I want to write to you. Somehow fit 2 decades into a single letter, slip it into a bottle, drop it into the ocean, and pray that the waves eventually find you. But knowing we've grown apart, I'm afraid to scare you away by being that cliche. So instead, I'm writing you a love letter in my broken Somali. It begins with the words, I'm sorry, Ralega how. I'm sorry because I never knew you, because I still don't, and because it's taken me this long to realize you were worth knowing. I'm sorry because I believed their lies and their gossip when I should have known better, and if I didn't, I owed it to you to care enough to want to know. And about everything that you are, about everything that you once were, and I'm sorry, Ralega how. I understand you, like my Somali isn't that great. My Somali isn't that great. These words are like stones in my mouth. I basically just learned what I've been missing, and hungry to make up for lost time, I bit off more than I can chew. So rather than choke, I choose to spit out these ill-formed sentences. Like, I love you, and I miss you. I miss you every time my mother tells me about white sand beaches and clear green oceans. I miss you at every wedding I attend. When women gather around to dance, their vibrant diraks overwhelm the room. Drums beating in the background, one booming voice sings the brahma, but I can't keep pace. So to save face, I step back into the crowd. I miss you when I hear about my parents' childhood. They grew up in a city, but they were raised by a village, and we need that attitude here and now more than ever. Because whenever we stand together, we draw these lines in the sand. And even after the tide has come and gone and swept everything away, I may have been an infant when this infanting began, but what have I done? So, can I really say I'm completely innocent? You see, some say ignorance is bliss, but a wound you aren't aware of will still spread an infection. By the time it gets your attention, God only knows the damage it might have done. I'm rambling now. You see, I'm not sure how much of this is making any sense. After all, Somali is my mother tongue, and yet I can only comfortably speak this present one. So a part of myself will always be lost in translation. It's like my Somali name was cut and pasted into Google and terribly translated. Over the years, I've corrected the English. I've made sense of it, but there's no cook that'll ever undo what I've done. So I'm going to have to backtrack. I'm going to have to start from scratch and inshallah someday rewrite this poem in Somali.
President Barack Obama once stood in front of a large audience and said the future must not belong to those that bully women. It must be shaped by girls who go to school and those who stand for a world where our daughters live their dreams just like our sons. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to say thank you for inviting me tonight. I'm very happy and excited to be here. I think so far I'm the only guy that won't be speaking, so I have to represent for all the boys that are here tonight. It's a great pleasure and honor for them, for all the mothers for inviting me. I'm one of those guys that did came to this country. I'm proud to say I was raised by a Somalian mother. I refer to her as a mother even though she was my aunt. And I'm also a firm believer, a person that thinks Somalia would have disappeared from the map if it wasn't for the Somalian women keeping it together. I was invited tonight just to talk about at school and Somalia, Somali Hope Academy, and some of the challenges some of the girls are facing at that school. I've recently met the school headmaster here in Ottawa, and he couldn't be here tonight. He would have loved to actually take part of this event, but he had to go back to Somalia, actually today. So I'm just going to be speaking on behalf of him and some of the challenges he told me the school is facing. First of all, girls are performing very well, and one of the biggest reasons why girls are attending this school is the school is providing free education for all children. And of course, as we know in Somalia, a lot of times when girls do want to go to school, they're overlooked simply because boys are given, of course, first the opportunity to go to school. And that's one of the things we want to eliminate. That's one of the reasons why we made, of course, we said all children are welcome. And of course, one of our biggest priorities is giving opportunities to girls. And believe me when I say this, that they perform very well. There are tons of girls that are doing 10 times better than some of the boys that are at the school. But of course, there are still some challenges that we're dealing with. And of course, it's a culture that always gives, of course, an opportunity to boys first and girls second. And I think also all of us that are here tonight have responsibilities to change that and to do our part. And it shouldn't be just we celebrating one day a year, Women's Night, Women's Day. I think that should be something that we celebrate throughout the year. So what are some of the challenges we see at the school? The first one, of course, is, yeah, go ahead, yeah. But just let it run actually. So some of the, one of the things we do see is, of course, early marriages. We lost some girls simply because their parents said, yeah, it's time for them to get married. Even though some of these girls are, some of them are as young as, 16, even sometimes younger. And of course, that's nothing we can do about it. If the parents do come and say, hey, it's time for my daughter to get married. Even though these girls are, some of the girls we lost were performing very, very high, and we're doing very well. The other thing we also see a lot is girls being taken away from the school and taken into some of the big cities. Of course, it's a small town; it's not a big town. And the parents saying, I want my daughter to help out a relative in whatever, in Mogadishu, in Galkayo, in Hargeisa, or whatever. And that's another challenge we deal with. A lot of times we do try to convince the parents to at least let her stay one more year, and then we'll ask for another year, hoping that they finally let her go and say, hey, let her learn, let her live her dream. But of course, that's a challenge for us. That's another challenge we see quite often. And it's no secret. Some of the girls, the school goes from 6 years old now up to 16 years old in the evenings. But of course, some of the girls are becoming women's now. And of course, a lot of times they ended up missing school a lot of times because they don't have the proper, they don't have the proper sanitations to stay in school, and that's, sometimes they also get left behind, missing an entire week or even more because we just don't have the staff for it. And I'm saying this in front of you guys because I want to be frank and honest, and that is some of the challenges we're dealing with and facing. The early marriage, we don't mind. If they do get married even in the city, we try to say, at least come take part of the evening, evening programs. That also provides, languages, that provides computer skills, first aid and CPR, and they do. Some of them do stay and come back. The other thing, even when I went in 2012, some of the challenges I've seen in general with women's where you'll meet sometimes a mother that has, 7 kids. Sometimes, I think a lot of Somali women, they trust us so much, especially as men, and sometimes we do fail them in most cases. You'll meet a mother with 7 kids, and sometimes from different from 3 different fathers. And it's not that it happened that way, but one guy will marry her, stay for a few years, and then all of a sudden he's off to whatever, and nobody can find him. Another guy, and a lot of times you'll have those kids that are, they're almost like orphans. The father is alive somewhere, but they're almost orphans, and that's very, very sad. And you meet some of those mothers. And what we want to make sure is to get these girls get a good education, and that way the kids did end up staying with them, and they can understand the importance of education, and that and to, of course, push their daughters to the next level, and always encourage them. And things like, hopefully we can eliminate some things like early marriages or the other things. Other than that, I noticed the MC was the only person also that was speaking Somali, so I'll do the last part of my speech in Somali. Lakin se waxay ahaanaysaa duca kaliya, so don't worry. Waaba maxaa la yidhahdaa wiil Soomaali baan caawiyey, marka waxaan ku yidhahday niyow khayr Allah ku siiyo. Marka wuxuu yidhaahday niyow horta khayr Allah ku siiyo ku dambaysa horta askarta ducadooda ma la aqbalaa. Marka hadda insha Allah Somali waxoogaa nagu duceynayaa, maxaa la yidhahdaa waxaan dhihi lahaa insha Allah ilaahay u sababtay gabadha Soomaaliyeed oo maanta ku dhibaataysan, maxaa la yidhahdaa ama gaalkacyo ama Hargeysa ama Jabuuti ama magaalada dhexdeeda, ilaahay horta ha u sahlo arrimaheeda. Annagana ilaahay naga dhigo mataqaanaa dadkii runtii markay shaqo qabanayaan u qabanaya si daacada, oo aan u qabanayn maxaa la yidhahdaa lagaa sheego, maxaa la yidhahdaa annagana qalbigeennana ilaahay isku fiicnaysiiyo. I thank you guys for giving me the time to actually come in and speak, and all of us can make a difference, whether we want or not. It's a different story. Thank you very much.
Assalamu alaikum waxaan rabaa inaan idin sheego sidii aan ku soo galay ururkan. Sida ogtihiin, a lot of you have been part of the Somali Women's Circle Network. Waa imaateen hadda ka hor. So you're probably wondering, so just to give you a bit of background, in 2012, it was my first event on the Iyayere, and to this day, I don't know how I got invited, but I was invited, and I was lucky to be invited. I took the opportunity, I came in to check out the event. So Mardo had a miro markii meel laga yeero waa iska soo fiiriyaan too maxay ku hayaan meesha. Marka saas aniga curiosity imaaday, but subhanallah, since then I've been coming to every event. Every day I've been enjoying it. I had a chance to talk to the founders of the organization. Marka kadib waxa dhacay in July of 2013, about 8 months ago hadda, I was elected as the 8th board member of the Somali Women's Circle Network. So waxaan ka hadlaya basically aniga waxa weeye, you heard a lot about the Falduma or Kenya joogtay, and we thought we wanted to talk about other Somali women that are doing great. So I selected the UK woman, even though it says Europe there, but really it's UK. So I'll be talking about 2 amazing women there that are doing amazing work. Midda ugu horeysan, I actually got the chance to meet with her back in October for the first time. So first one is Ayan. Ayan Mahmoud is basically the managing director of CAID organization. If you're not familiar with the organization, I strongly urge you to Google it. It's an amazing organization, and like I said, she lives in London, UK. In 2007, Ayan and a few other people got together, and they coordinated the Somali Week Festival, which brought together some of the greatest Somali artists and opinion makers, Sida Hadrawi, Gariye, Abdelais, Hassan Gene, inti taqaanun baa taqaana ila tahay. So the idea was to get those artists to engage or discussion with the general public. Now since then, CAID actually became an organization that coordinates regular artistic and cultural events in the Horn of Africa and all over Europe. So Somali Week Festival, which is one of the main things that they're known for, it's an integral part of the Black History Month and offers the best of Somali arts and culture, both old and new, and is a widely recognized and anticipated annual event in the UK. So it happens every October, and that's actually Black History Month in London, which is October. So a whole week is dedicated to the Somali community there. The other thing that Kate organizes is the Hargeisa International Book Fair, which works closely with the Red Sea Online, which promotes the culture of reading and writing within the Somali community. Now, Ayan has helped to organize the Hargeisa Book Festival since its founding 6 years ago. And for the annual fair, it attracts every year, attracting a growing number of authors and artists up to the Horn of Africa. And recently, they had other international artists that actually went there because they wanted to see, they heard a lot about it, so they wanted to see the excitement and everything, what's going on there. So some of the artists that actually went recently were, I have some of the names here, like the British journalist, Mary Harper, American writer Ben Stein, Nigerian author, Chuma Wakolo, and Scottish poet, W.N. Herbert. Yes, so the Somali Week Festival, as I mentioned earlier, I had a chance to meet with Ayan. So I had the wonderful opportunity back in October. It just so happened, subhanAllah, I planned a 3-week vacation to the UAE. And after I bought my ticket, I was talking to my friend. I was like, yeah, I'm going to stop by London because I have a family there. And my friend was like, I think you're going around the same time as the Somali Week Festival. So I went online, and sure enough, it was the same time. So 3 nights I actually got to go there. I met some amazing people there. One of the young ladies I met was Nadifa Mohammed. She's a writer. She just released her 2nd book. Amazing. I'm still working on reading it. I still haven't finished, but it's a really good book. I also met with Hiba Noura, Somali legend. So, yeah. So it was amazing, and there was also Armata was there too, doing his thing there. So it was a great opportunity. And just for anyone that might be interested, in August, if you find yourself, I talked earlier about the Hargeisa Book Fair. It's actually happening in August of this year, from the 8th to the 13th. So if you find yourself there, check it out. And the theme this year was imagination. So you can only imagine what that would be. Okay. So now I'm going to move on to my second speaker. Her name is Leila Hussein. She also lives in London, UK. She is the co-founder of Daughters of Eve, and that organization is a non-profit organization that works to advance and protect the physical, mental, and the reproductive health rights of young people from female genital and she's a psychotherapist by profession. She has over 8 years of experience in working with young people and as a youth outreach worker. She works with the local Somali football teams, the non-African youth groups. She also works very closely with the Young Africans and Friends group, which was formed by youth working together to tackle taboo issues within African communities, such as HIV and AIDS. She also works with the Somali Youth Forum there, SYF. And that actually group was formed, they came together following the devastation of the London bombings. I believe it was in 2005. And the reason they came together was to portray a more positive image of their culture and traditions to others. So she works very closely with that. And I'm mixing on purpose Somali English because honestly, the only reason English is because I saw the first few speakers, so I thought, okay, it's Katsuri. But really, I'm looking around and I see 99% Somali Banai. So it always pains me to see so that's why I'm doing it. So I'm mixing them together. Now, to tell you a little more about Leila, she's actually won various awards. In 2008, she won the Breaking Down Barriers Award. And in 2010, which is about 4 years ago now, she won the Ultimate Campaigner Woman of the Year Award. And that award is actually a star event. There's a lot of celebrities that come out. that night. And some of the categories, just to give you an idea what the event is about, they have categories for the celebrities and of course real life women. So some of the categories of the celebrities will have a ultimate TV presenter, ultimate theater star, ultimate UK music star, ultimate international music star. And sure enough, in 2010, the same night Layla was awarded, Katy Perry was awarded as well. So I thought that was interesting. Some of the real life categories will have a ultimate international angel, ultimate sports star, ultimate campaigner, which is what Layla actually was awarded for. Okay. Yes, so in 2011, she went on to win, that wasn't it, she went on to win the winner, the Emma Humphrey Award, which the winners are given 1,000 prize, and it's also awarded to an individual woman who has, brought to writing or campaigning some sort of an awareness against violence against women. So Layla was awarded that. And then she went on to win the Ambassador for Peace Prize by the Interreligious and International Peace Federation. And this is awarded to individuals who dedicate themselves to promoting universal moral values, a strong family life, interreligious cooperation, international harmony, and the renewal of the United Nations. Is also responsible for mass media and so on. Okay, so that's Layla, and that's a bit of Ayan. Again, if you get the time to, read about them, I would definitely go on YouTube, check them out. Okay, so that's my presentation. I do have a YouTube clip of Layla that will tell you a little more about Daughters of Eve, her organization, and her message to women all across the world, especially Somali women. So, if you want to enjoy that, thank you.
There's a slogan called Breaking Stereotypes. I can't tell you much, but probably there's something simple and easy. And I have Farhiya Abdi here, who is going to give you the instruction or explanation of what breaking the stereotypes is. Thank you.
Thank you. And now try and actually go to second. waxaan miisadaha saaray warqado waan inuu qof walba warqadaas qaato uu akhriyo warqada waxaa ku qoran waa language oo Somali ah oo dumarka ku saabsan marka waxaan rabaa in table walbaahi oo warqadaas warkaas ku qoran uu macneeyo bedelana uu ku bedelo in positive things because wararkaasi waa wararka dumarka lagu xumeeyo Soomaaliya marka waxay noqotay haddii aan rabno inaan culture-ka bedelnana waa inaan language ka bedelno marka waxaan u baahanahay table walbaahi inuu noo sheego what it means kelmaddaas sentenceskaas maxay ku saabsan tahay oo what is it telling you oo kadibna aad ku bedesho hadal wanaagsan oo positive marka kasii fikirayda cashaynaysaa cashada markay dhammaato oo timeka aan u baahana hadhow discussionka aan samayno la gaaro markaasaan wada hadli doonaa you might win a prize haddii aad si fiican u barsanka garaysaan okay have a good dinner
Assalamu alaikum. There we go. Thank you. All right. So horta maanta waxaan xalinayaa ilaahay subxaana qaadira oo noo suurtageliyay inaan halkan isugu nimaadno waxaan mahad gaar ah ku celinayaa marti sharafka iyo dadkii noo suurtageliyay in madashan quruxda badan aan isugu nimaadno maadaama aan khudbadan aan af Soomaali ku dhamaystiri karin bal waxaan isiri inta hore Soomaali ka noqon hadda iyo meeshaan joognana waxay ila tahay inaan hadda aan u soo degno qaybta Englishka marka laga wada raali noqdo. So in the midst of helping organize this event, I've thought very deeply of a number of women-related issues. But what I'm most reflected about is what today, March the 8th, means to us as women. And what this day should mark for each and every one of us in this room is to stand in solidarity with our sisters in every corner of the world who are working for positive change in their countries, communities, and most importantly, their families. And we are not to forget about our sisters that are still facing injustice. I often worry about the young girls I attended boarding school with in Lambar Afar, and my beloved rebellious neighborhood friends who would help me tease Boba for hours. If any of you in the audience are from the Bulakabe neighborhood, then I'm sure you guys know who Boba is. It's been a long, long, long 12 years since I've last spoken to many of my friends, and I'm sure now at 22, they're married off and possibly young mothers. Seeing as though they are women in Mogadishu, my dear friends are subject to a catalog of dangers, including high maternal mortality, rape, and limited access to proper health care, education, and even possibly economic resources. Though my heart is often relieved by the very vibrant and active network of strong women activists in Mogadishu, all of which are committed to improving access to proper health care, justice for women and girls, and in particular raising awareness of gender-based violence. These women are so dedicated in supporting women leadership and political participation. Now, I've particularly grown fond of the brave souls of two heroic Somali women, and I'd like to share their stories with you. So to begin is my favorite, Dr. Hawa Abdi Iblawa. Dr. Hawa is a human rights activist and physician, and she is the founder and chairperson of Dr. Hawa Abdi Foundation. Dr. Hawa attended medical school in the former Soviet Union, and completed training that would make her Somalia's first gynecologist. She was born and raised in Mogadishu, and she married and later raised 3 children. And we see in 1983 that she opened the very first rural health development organization, which was just a 1-room clinic that was very close to Mogadishu on farmland that her family owned. And at that time, she persuaded nomadic women to let her deliver their babies. And after the Civil War broke out, Dr. Hawa decided to stay behind and treat and educate the thousands of Somalis that were internally displaced. In 2010, after many, many years of hard work at this clinic, a militant Islamic group actually seized the camp and kidnapped Dr. Hawa and her nurses. And her daughter, who followed in her footsteps, later wrote to the New York Times recalling, "I was begging her, Hoya, just give in," she was saying. And her mother said, "No, I will die with dignity." And the word of Dr. Hawa's courage spread, and in 2012, she was in fact nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize, and she also received the Women of Impact Award from the WITW Foundation. To date, we see that Dr. Hawa has actually treated over 90,000 patients, and the Dr. Hawa Abdi Foundation today has 102 staff members and over 150 volunteers. The hospital that was once just a very small clinic now has 400 beds for patients. Alhamdulillah, they have 2 operating theaters and a laboratory and a pharmacy. And the Dr. Hawa Abdi Foundation has also expanded the school that she started in 1983. And today there are 200 students. And she's also opened up an adult education center that offers literacy and health classes for women. And you can see the young kids there as well. And Dr. Hawa also established a well on that farmland that she had. And this was the only source of free fresh water in that region. And her team have introduced a very smart farming agriculture program that aims to give Somali people a defense against famine and climate change. And I hope to play one clip if we have time. That's okay with everyone. Okay, so that was Dr. Hawa Abdi. The next woman of courage that I'd like to introduce is my dear aunt, Fardoon Abdisalam Adam. And Fardoon is the executive director of the Elman Peace and Human Rights Center, located in Mogadishu. And Habib Fardoon and her late husband, Elman Ali Ahmed, worked for years as peace activists. And they were advocates for education as an alternative to violence. And together they joined the phrase, Halinka, or Habada Dik Halinka Pawam, and in English that's translated as put down the pen and put down the gun and pick up the pen. In 1986, unfortunately, Elman was assassinated by local warlords for its peacemaking efforts. And shortly after that, Habib Fartoun migrated here to Canada, where she raised her 3 daughters. And in 2007, at the height of the conflict in Mogadishu, she returned. In 2010, Habib Fartoun initiated Sister Somalia, which is a program that supports victims who had survived rape and escaped forced marriages. And to date, the center has served over 400 Somali women and girls, offering both counseling, medical services, and they also provide businesses to start up kits and funds. This program also gives entrepreneurial skills and a relocation to a safe place to stay. In 2011, Habib Fartoun established Somalia's first sexual violence hotline and rape crisis center in Mogadishu. And she also restarted the Elman Peace and Human Rights Centers in efforts to reintegrate former child soldiers back into society with both education and job training. Many of these child soldiers today are working as teachers, electricians, and mechanics, and they're also involved in a lot of other professions. And in 2003, it was a great pleasure of all of us to see Habib Fartoun be presented with the International Women of Courage Award from the United States Department. Both Dr. Hawa and Habib Fartoun are women of courage who have championed human and women's rights, peace building and development. And they are both powerful and effective humanitarians and truly a great inspiration to every one of us in this room. Thank you very much for listening.
I'm going to apologize in advance. I'm not as eloquent as the speakers before me, so I'll do my best, inshallah. Honestly, I'm sorry, I'm still reeling from that video, inshallah. Like, the people we featured tonight are absolutely amazing. And I just kept thinking in my head, I have to get my game up, inshallah, and do my best for my community as well. Good evening, dear mothers, aunts, wives, sisters, grandmothers, nieces, cousins, friends, and of course the men who love them. My name is SWCN, and I'm a Somali woman, obviously. I would like to express my gratitude to the Somali Women's Circle Network for inviting me here tonight. They gathered a fantastic group of people here, including my dates at table 8 over there. I'm honored and absolutely surprised still at this moment. So before I begin, I'd like to make a very dangerous wager. I bet that there's no person here tonight whose life has not been inspired by, touched, shaped by, dedicated to, or has not started from a woman. That's my bet. So I think I'm probably safe with that. So in light of such a unanimous truth, I'd like to share the fact that I truly believe that International Women's Day should be an every day for everyone, inshallah. So before I begin, I'd like to share some facts, some stats with you all. It is estimated that 52% of the world's population are indeed women. 100% of those women have the potential to change the world forever, and often do. Worldwide, 1 in 3 women have been abused or subjected to gender-based violence in their lives. A crisis here at home in Canada is Aboriginal women and girls are 5 times more likely than any other woman their age here in Canada to die as a result of violence. That is definitely a crisis here in Canada. The Native Women's Association in Canada has gathered information on about 582 cases here. 67% of them are murder cases, and 20 are missing cases, and the other are cases of suspicious death or unknown causes. So I honestly urge you all, inshallah, after tonight to do research on the subject and maybe help these initiatives across the country to get the government to make a national inquiry into this, inshallah, because they are our sisters. Women earn 75% of the income of their male counterparts in the exact same field. Also, the majority of post-secondary degree holders are indeed women, but a majority of professors are male. There's obviously something went wrong there. So the fact that there's a gathering like this one who celebrates the achievements, survival, and power of Somali women in such a systematic and impressive society is truly amazing. It makes my heart flutter. So thank you to all the women here who've done so much for me and the girls around the world, directly or indirectly. The spaces you've created for us, the doors you've opened, the friendships you've extended to us will never be forgotten. I honestly cannot believe, I can't begin to name all the women who affected me in my life. So for the reason why I'm actually here, my story begins with probably the most honestly anticlimactic scenes of all time. It was just me and my business partner Kate, who's another Somali female student, in her bunk bed. We were just looking up different YouTube videos, comedic skits, you know, vlogs, hijab tutorials, and that kind of such. And what we realized is that we never came across a Somali female YouTuber ever. So thinking it was obviously maybe we missed them sometime in our research, we started a 1-hour search on the internet looking for a Somali female anything on the internet, and we came up with nothing. So we decided that we wouldn't stand for this, and why not just create something for our own. Some small little video to show our friends, maybe inshallah, our hoya is getting a laugh, maybe 100 views, something very low-key inshallah. That was the goal. My partner Kate is a videographer, director, and editor, who started all of work in high school actually with Adobe Youth Voices program. And she actually made a documentary on the hijab that got her all the way to Stanford to present it for the whole council, mashallah. So we put our heads together, and thus Specs and Veil production was born. So the initial goal, like I mentioned before, was to produce some like YouTube comedic skits centered around being Somali here in Canada. And what we did not expect was over half, right now I think it's about 700,000 views on our videos alone. And we have 3 videos. So I still can't believe it, wallahi, alhamdulillah. Also a series of C-suite radio interviews, multiple speaking events, and also a life-changing media internship with the United Nations Association of Canada's Multimedia and Multiculturalism initiative here in Ottawa. Alhamdulillah. But honestly, I truly believe the most rewarding moment, the best gift that was ever given to us through this project is that we got to witness firsthand the creation of a digital community of Somali YouTubers that I've never seen before, that month at least. What I didn't realize in that bunk bed at the time was that there'd be a reaction and of a lot of Somali youth across the diaspora creating their own narratives and their own stories and uploading them onto YouTube. I'm telling you, every 4 hours, alhamdulillah, things were being posted up. So definitely, we found each other, alhamdulillah, and now we're supporting each other on YouTube as well. Although this journey started with the goal of making people laugh, it soon turned to a mission to encourage Somali women across the diaspora, across the world, to take control of media and their representation to create their own narratives. Lastly, I'd like to thank all the Somali boys that inspired me in my lifetime and shaped the vision of the woman I want to become, inshallah, soon. I was blessed to have a father in my life, a fact that some of you know isn't always the case. I always say this, that I've never met a stronger woman than a Somali hoya. I've never. So alhamdulillah, and thank God I have so much around me, so alhamdulillah for that, to make the support system. Today I'm celebrating for International Women's Day my aunt who raised 5 children alone here in this new country, a new immigrant culture shock. Also to my other aunt who refused to accept the government's suggestion to leave her mentally disabled daughter to the government and has raised her for the past 26 years happily, mashallah. Here's also to my aunt who against all odds graduated with a BA at the age of 57, mashallah. And also of course to my wonderful hoya, my superhero, who abandoned everything in her home country, sacrificed so much, built my self-esteem, alhamdulillah, and has always done so with a smile, a warm hug, and some shah. So I love you, hoya. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. So before I begin, I'd like to share with you the reason why I chose this piece for today. Today we are celebrating the empowerment of women, and this piece was inspired through a series of conversations I had with a few women from the Somali community, and they were brave enough to share their stories of domestic abuse, and I was honored for the very simple fact that it's kind of a taboo within our community to discuss these sort of situations, and they were, strong enough to share it with me. And after listening to them, I felt the urge to write a piece that was dedicated to them, something in honor of them, depicting just a small fraction of what they went through. So here it goes. Lingering thoughts keep her up at night, leaving nothing but the sound of her clock and her heartbeat moving in unison, creating a sweet lullaby. A tune in which her heart can sing along to, sing a song her lips don't even know the words to, yet seems so familiar. A song The song was written for the girl who loved too hard, the girl that gave it all up just to be with the man that left her with nothing, like a thief in the night, stealing whatever he wanted, leaving his footprints at the door with a message saying that he'd be back for more. Not only do I want your heart to play with, I want your mind. I want to whisper sweet nothings into it, lacing secret messages saying that you will never find someone like me. I want the butterflies I left at the pit of your stomach, leaving you with a void that I never filled, so you remain empty. I want those eyes that were deep enough to drown in, yet shallow enough to see past my faults. I want those hands that spent hours tirelessly creating miracles in the kitchen, making sure my clothes were ironed and taking care of my children. I want everything. And as she reads the note, she can't help but smirk. A moment in which she would have cried, but see, he left her tear ducts drying in the Sahara Desert, so she writes, "My dear, you say that you want everything, but you failed to mention the Sunday morning bruises, the fat lip, and the contusions you left on my body. Were they not good enough? How about the endless nights I spent crying over you, leaving an ocean-like puddle deep enough to hold years of anger and regret? And I regret ever loving you, because loving you was like a moving fluid from my spine, losing whatever backbone I had left in me. So you can keep my heart that once had your fingerprints written all over it, and you can keep the subliminal messages because you are right about one thing. I will never love another man like you, but instead, I will learn to love a man that will drop to his knees and thank God that I'm with him, a man that will crown me his queen, and we will be the flyest couple to ever rule this kingdom." And say what you want, remember this. And say what you want, remember this. A tiger never values the opinion of a sheep. So don't you ever think that I'm going to lose sleep over you. I remove myself from the stereotypical crack you once left me in. No longer am I bound to be that woman because, haven't you heard? My heart beats to a song that I can't stop singing along to. And it's called Redemption. Thank you.